Let's do it.
That makes more sense.
All righty. I think this is it. I think we're live, right? Welcome everybody to today's episode of Trade the Chain. It is, I've once again forgotten the day. What's the day? Wednesday, May 26th. And
yeah.
Thank you for joining us. And this is live and stinks. We're a little bit late today because we had to wait for Rob over at Digital Asset Network. He's always late. So my apologies to everyone. But I am joined today with CJ Amonte, our crypto analyst from MarketRebellion.com, and of course, special guest Rob from Digital Asset News, the one and only, who just finished up a fantastic live stream. That was a really good one, Rob. I liked it.
I think that was fun. That was a lot of fun. I got a lot of heat. I love that.
Today Rob's going to hit up some news, after the big boards. But as you could read from the title, I don't know. CJ came up with that title today. It's a little mixed signals. I don't know what the boys are thinking. But we're going to find out soon, and this is all going to be fresh and new for me. I'm just happy the markets are still holding where they are. Yeah. But there is a lot going around. So, CJ, you're pulling double duty. Ryan is off on a boat in the harbor somewhere with the day off.
Correct. I wish RG the best. Just a friendly reminder here, nothing said by Market Rebellion, Trade the Chain, or Digital Asset News should be constituted as financial advice. This is all for educational and entertainment purposes only. And as Ryan likes to say, please do not listen to us. Also, Trade the Chain is brought to you by Trade the Chain, an AI-driven sentiment indicator dashboard with actionable alerts to help you beat the market, now with members worldwide. You can check it out at tradethechain.com and get a little glimpse into the sentiment dashboard as well as the Trade the Chain community. Additionally, we have marketrebellion.com/crypto. This is Monty and myself and our community at Market Rebellion. And with us, you get weekly trade ideas with
CJ is stunned. So I'll finish this up, folks. You get weekly trade ideas with macro portfolio something. And but anyway, Monty and CJ do a great job over at marketrebellion.com/crypto. And head on over there. I believe they just did their weekly members webinar today, which is always fun on Wednesdays, and as well as they have cocktail hours, or virtual cocktail hours on Friday. So check it out. And then also, because we have Rob here, you got to plug danteachescrypto.com. If you are new to the space or learning more about the space, go and set up your free account at danteachescrypto.com.
100% free. 100% free. I made it for people. Doesn't matter what kind of economic position that you're in. I don't care if you're in America, Canada, Bangladesh, or sub-Saharan Africa. Everybody can, as long as you got an internet connection, find out everything you want to know or should know about crypto and digital assets. And I still have to put in that section that me and CJ did 3 weeks ago on
what?
TA. Yes, I know. I'm really slacking.
Dude, you just did one on your favorite crypto tracking app. I just saw that a review. Does that go into the Dan Teaches Crypto stuff too?
Yes.
Like for tools? Okay.
Yeah, I had my assistant do it, and I think it's already done. But I have to create the whole new section of technical analysis. And the first video, actually, there's two first. It's going to be CJ and then one mullet. They did the simplified ones.
Oh yeah.
And then we go into more depth stuff.
Yeah. No, and I just want to say that people in the comments, it's been 2 weeks since CJ got that mid-episode DoorDash delivery from Panda Express. They still comment on it because I think CJ eats it every day. And real quickly before handing it.
That's not true. Very healthy human.
Yeah. Good. That's healthy food. That's healthy food. It's chicken and rice. I don't see the problem.
Let's get CJ a sponsorship, people. Let's get him that Panda
Express sponsorship. And by the way, for everybody who asked who hit the first thumbs down button before we even got started, that's because Peter Schiff watches us regularly.
Right. Who is that guy? He sounds irrelevant. Okay.
Rob, you're filling in for Ryan today, so you got to be controversial. You got to be recklessly long ETH, and you got to trash MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor a little bit.
And I need to go get some hair gel, like good hair gel, and like I said, more hair. If I could do that, I could be Ryan, and then take some pictures of some boats. But I can't do it. So yeah, so I'll be Ryan today. Ethereum's going to the moon. Yet I sold everything, and we'll see what happens. He's gonna kill me when he comes back on.
He's watching this now from the hair salon. He's mad as heck.
He's like, just a little bit more at the top, a little bit more at the sides. All right.
All right, CJ, tell yours, buddy.
Time to give the people what they want. Let's talk about Bitcoin. And
right.
Please stop me at any point if I freeze up again. My internet's just been a little spotty today for a certain reason.
What you downloading over there, CJ?
I normally have very high download speeds, and they wouldn't even affect streaming. But I don't know. Maybe I just probably need to restart my router or whatnot. Anyways, let's talk about Bitcoin here. I want to first start by highlighting the 4-hour chart. I don't look at the 4-hour chart a whole lot when we're talking about the overall macro trend. I tend to focus on daily and weekly. But in this instance, Monty and I were just talking about this during our webinar, but we have essentially an inverse head and shoulders here playing out, which would then lead us up to some of these resistance levels like 42 and 45K. Now, chart patterns like this are more successful when they're on longer term timeframes. So due to the fact that we're on the 4-hour with this one, that's something to be taken in account for. But it was really interesting. There was this one technician in the early 2000s who backtested decades of data through price charts and took, the ascending triangle, descending triangle, wedge patterns, head and shoulders patterns, and did all of these historical back tests to see which ones were the actual most accurate and most reliable to form trades about. And his research concluded that the best win percentage for a particular chart pattern was the head and shoulders pattern. So that's a pretty interesting thing that I found to be a little bit noteworthy, and recognize that we have one on the daily chart. But ultimately, this 4-hour really needs to hold that moving average right there. Otherwise, this pattern pretty much gets negated. So that's the 4-hour time frame. I'm still pretty bullish on this, a little bullish neutral, but I'll leave it for Monty to go ahead and discuss ETH or potentially some other time frames on Bitcoin there.
Yeah, CJ, I don't want to rain on the parade, but I am Mr. Short, and I'm a little less bullish today than you are. And I agree. The 4-hour chart does look good, CJ. I like what I'm seeing in that sense, because that head and shoulder formation is looking very strong. But I want to look at the daily chart right here, because I do think that we're going to get rejected to that moving average that you mentioned on the 4-hour. And I think that's supported here by looking at the daily chart. So this 42K level is staunch resistance for Bitcoin. It acted as support a few times on the way down. And, we got this TD sequential buy 9 here that set up this critical level of 42K. And that, in conjunction with the fact that we have pretty steadily declining volume over the last few days, leads me to believe that we're not going to have sufficient momentum to break through this 42K level. And I want to just go back to that 4-hour time frame that you were pointing out, because, it's not very often we see such a, perfect head and shoulders formation here, but this was a really good one. And I think that it is likely that this kind of formation completes a little bit better. I agree, CJ, that it would be more bullish if we could put in this higher low right here at around the smooth moving average, but it's looking likely to me that we are headed to retest this level of 36.6K. And ultimately that would be okay for me. I think that because of the declining volume, we're not ready to break through this level yet. So a retest of this level will just give some people some more time to accumulate. And I'm looking for kind of a more completion of this pattern. I think we can go down, consolidate around this level, and possibly get a bounce up and break clean through this moving average. That's what I would love to see. Perhaps a similar price move to what we saw on this candle, but just in the opposite direction. So possibly a move from 36 to 42K. And if we can get that, that would be very encouraging, because that would lead to sort of an upward tilting of this smooth moving average. And getting above this would be ultimately critical for the interim trend for Bitcoin. So I agree, CJ, that, this chart does look good, but I think that we are looking set to go down and retest the 35, 36K level in the interim.
Ouch. Oof. Oh,
Oof.
gosh.
I don't disagree though. Like the thing, we don't really know where the trend is headed right now because we're very neutral. That's just the truth. And I like how, I froze again.
That was awesome. I like how, I froze.
I'll let you guys go ahead.
Well, we can still hear you. We can hear you, CJ. It's just your face. Oh, now you're back. You're back. Go ahead.
Okay. So go ahead. Let's go ahead, CJ.
Well, I think the way at least I interpret the TA in many cases is by allowing the market to tell you where it's about to go. So if we get a completion of that bullish inverse head and shoulders pattern, that's going to be my confirmation to be much more bullish. But we could also certainly go down Monty's path that he highlighted. And if we did that, that would be more of a provider of like bearish confirmation to kind of wait off and say, maybe I might be able to get a better entry price on this one. So there's another indicator I could talk about, which would give us kind of further confirmation. That would just be the ADX. And watching the 14 period ADX, since it is a lagging indicator, the minute you see like a peak in the strength of the trend, that's when you want to, based on the indicator theory, that's when it would give you a buy signal or an entry signal. But we just haven't gotten it yet. We're starting to see diminishing returns, but we just haven't gotten the entry signal. But please, I want to hear from you gentlemen. I've already talked too much.
Well, I mean, one of the things here, I just I'd pulled up the chart for sentiment, and you do see that the sentiment is waning on Bitcoin slightly here as we complete the 7 days. Let me get that. But you see the dip that's happening after, being mostly the second half of this past week positive. And so it's interesting. The last 3-4 days been positive. We've seen the market react to that. Now we're going into a negative cycle. So I'm curious on who's going to be right here between Monty and CJ.
Yeah, it's perfect. We're right at that point where it could really legitimately go either way, right? You can take a look at this and go, well, I can see where it go this way. I can see where it go that way. And it's just all depends on your strategy, right? I mean, everybody knows my strategy, which is just be dumb and then just buy, and then it doesn't really matter. But I was actually listening to Alex Becker over there on his channel. And once you get through all the jokes and everything, he said something pretty good. He said he believes, and he's not a big TA guy, but he goes, I think it's going to go down to 32. And he says, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sell a bunch of it. And if it goes down, another 10%, 20% or whatever else it is, I'm okay. But if I have to buy back in, then I'll buy back in as it starts to raise up. So it's like one of those things where it's like, I'm just going to hedge my bet. I think it's going to go down big time, but it might not. It might go up just a little bit. So I'll just sell right here. And if it goes down, good news for me. If it goes up, okay, I caught you. And then I'll buy back in, and I pay a slight penalty as opposed to just losing all this money. I'm like, that's not a bad idea. I was thinking about it. I'm like, that sounds pretty good. Did I do it? Absolutely not. Because I'm just like, you know what? That just makes way too much sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wait to see where things go. And then just, instead of dollar cost averaging big time, because I bought so much during these dips, so much, like I told before, I'm broke. My bank's broke. So that's it for me.
It's I'm going to give a little teaser to everybody who's not a Trade the Chain member. Take a look if you are holding in your portfolio. Let's take a look at the daily sentiment, toggle to what is very bullish. There, woof. Not bearish. Let's go back to bullish.
Go chain. That's a big one. Just kidding. I don't know what that is.
Look at that Filecoin sitting at the top of the charts on the daily sentiment for bullish. Avalanche, AVAX. That's CJ Rob and I just did that on Trinity Trading.
Hey, how are we doing on what was the call for Avalanche? Let me see real quick.
Yeah. Hey, you got like Swissborg, our boys Cyrus and Alex over at Swissborg coming in number 5. Origin Protocol. I know a bunch of folks, you guys have that. And then next, so it's a good bullish top 6 here. CeeLo, Waves, Polygon, number 10. Harmony. Yeah, I like
Hey,
it.
what's up? What was Avalanche at? The price today?
Avalanche, we got boom at 1971.
Okay. Yeah, we call it at 1904, so not too bad. But you did say 7 days.
Oh yeah, 7 days, 7 days. Wow, look at that. Look at that sentiment. The sentiment, folks, in the green. There it is, pushing a lot of sentiment right now. That score was well into the 90s for a little bit over the last 36 hours. So yeah, no, I'm a believer in Avalanche over the course of a week for a swing trade. So we'll see how that does.
Yeah, and then also for Swissborg, they just got that mass adoption project of the year award wherever they're
Yeah, I
at.
saw that on Twitter. Congrats to them. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I think our buddy James gave him that award. But he's part of that conference over in Dubai. But I see Alex and Cyrus spending a lot more time in Dubai. That was kind of like a go-to during the pandemic to hang out there. But the most important news that Swissborg has, I believe this is public. Yes, it is public. Is their launch pad. They have launched a launch pad. And so I'm curious about that.
yeah, it's pretty good. So we're looking at like a polka starter, like a card starter. Now it's going to be what, Swiss starter?
It's for all those Swiss cheese coins.
No, for all the Swiss residents. That's interesting.
Exactly. So I'm looking forward to see how that does. Those guys are tremendous over there.
Yeah,
Quickly, Rob, I know you've read up on Matic and Cuban. Somebody in the chat wanted to. They said, "Hey, you guys can talk about it." This is all you. I'm throwing this in your court.
So here's
Tell us what happened.
So here's the story. Mark Cuban bought Polygon. That's it. That's the whole story. That's
Mic
like
drop.
the main thing. Yeah. That's so. What was interesting to me is that I don't know who was talking about it, but they gave a comparison between an Elon Musk billionaire type, the Mark Cuban billionaire type, and the responsibilities that these people who have a massive amount of following and the inexhaustible resources, what they can actually do with it. And it looks like Mark Cuban did his due diligence and goes, you know what, this looks like a pretty good thing. Ethereum is a solid project. Gas fees are awful. Let's take a look at how we can fix those. There's a great layer 2 solution, and it seems to be functioning quite well. I'm going to actually test it out. I'm going to use it for my non-fungible token website. I'm going to actually put this onto my, actually buy a ton of it. This is a good project. Great team, great everything, right? As compared to, we'll take like an Elon Musk and go, you know what? Dogecoin's funny. It's got a lot of dogs. I like those dogs. We should buy dogs. That's all I can really see. But I don't know if it's me just with the inability to play 4D chess, and maybe it's like Elon Musk going, look at this, dogs and funny stuff and Twitter, then over here buy Bitcoin and buy whatever else and let the, all these different tax credits. I don't know if that's what it is, but Mark Cuban comes out and says, hey, we bought a ton of Matic. And I think Matic is I think it's almost in the top 10, maybe 11, 12, somewhere around there. Yeah. I think it's up 30% in a day. So yeah, and but it makes you think though where Ethereum could go, right? Because we always harp on, since Ryan's not here, I'll be the Ethereum guy today. So Ethereum, it's got, there's so many developers working on it, so many things. I've even talked trash about it because of all the different fees, but if they can figure that out, especially with a layer 2 solution, take a look in the very beginning of the internet. I wish Lucas was here because he's way better at this. So when he had HTML come out and different types of coding, and they could say, well, we're going to try to do everything. Well, you couldn't do everything. You couldn't process payments. You couldn't do security. You couldn't do, you can kind of do it, but you need different aspects to kind of make the whole internet work. It's not just one code that makes it work. So maybe that's how it's going to work with Ethereum. Here's the base layer. This is the typewriter. Write your story, and then you can also pull in other parts to make it actually function. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh yeah, with analogies. I really like that.
Well, I'm old, so that's why I do them all the time. Thanks, CJ.
I'm excited just to drop be mysterious. I'm excited about this loyalty token that's dropping soon called Cent.
Oh, I've heard of this.
You've heard of this coin,
I've heard
right?
of this. Yeah.
what's great about the Cent token, what's going to be cool about the Cent token is that there's going to be a whole liquidity yield farming pool on the Polygon chain with Cent. I'm excited.
And that is on Zero exchange?
That'll be on the Zero exchange, the Cent token, which is the governance token for Trade the Chain for the members over there and stuff. It'll be on the, and because it's Zero exchange just completed the bridge for Polygon a week ago. And so that was really exciting news.
I did not know that. So, wow, pretty good. These are the things that we got to talk about more, Alex.
I know. It's the stuff that fascinates people.
I wish you all the best of success with Trade the Chain and Cent token there. Very, very exciting stuff.
CJ, I interrupted you though, but what were you going to say?
I was just going to ask you guys kind of a miscellaneous question. You know, any thoughts, because we were talking about the early internet, or Rob was, any thoughts on internet computer or ICP, the thing that's just had this monstrous rise? Because it doesn't really, I don't see the utility. Maybe yet. So I was looking at this a little bit, and you can always check out over there at Coin Bureau, Guy. He did a really deep dive. And even as well as Guy explains simplistic things like I do, it was still super confusing. But essentially it goes like this. You know how for every type of internet service, we have a data server. We have some type of centralized function where everything kind of just pulls into the data and it spits it all out, like cloud service, like Filecoin, which is what makes Filecoin so awesome or potentially awesome. So what they're going to do is say, you know what, we're going to take all these different functions as far as like for the internet service and just put them on just a ton of nodes and blockchain. But that is the super most simple thing that I can talk about it. And it was a 20-minute video and I still couldn't wrap my head around it. So I actually used CJ's advice when he said, invest first and do research later. So on that dip, I bought a bunch of internet computer because I'm like, you know what? I think it could be, it's a very ambitious project. And one of the big things that they do talk about is that, you know how Google owns everything, Twitter and the Facebooks and all these different conglomerates. This is what could happen with internet computer. And that's one of the downfalls, is that they could start to own pretty much everything and they could have all these different social media platforms on this platform. And it could just kind of ruin the whole process. But again, I didn't buy a lot, but I bought a little bit. And then we'll go from there. That's all I'm going to say.
Every morning when I hop in the ocean, you hit me up for PayPal money because you're broke. This is what you're doing with it?
PayPal money and bail money. I need both of those things.
I do like Coin Bureau. He does explain things pretty nicely over there. So
no, he's a good guy. Anyhow, that's all I know. So CJ, to answer your question, that was the best I could do, which was pretty sad.
Yeah, no, thanks. Appreciate that.
Appreciate the effort, even though it sucked. But that's okay.
But
I got.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, CJ.
I was just going to say, when you mentioned that concept of invest first, investigate later, nothing will make you do research more and learn about something more than watching your money fluctuate and trying to find out why it's fluctuating a particular way. That's how kind of my experience was when I first started trading.
Well, I love his technical problems.
It's so inconsistent.
Look, he jumps around the room.
It was getting good though. It was getting good.
I think what CJ was getting at was like when you bet on a football game, and I'm not promoting betting, but if you bet on a football game, all of a sudden that game becomes very, very interesting, you know? Monty, I want to, I read some chatter earlier today, there's analysts who are thinking that Ethereum is literally half of what its true value is now that it's retracted. I'd love for you to jump in on the Ethereum case, give us an idea of, what you think its value is, or, is it an opportunity? Is it not? And where you think it's heading in the short term?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, I do think that ETH is a tremendous opportunity I'm going to start by pulling up the Bitcoin dominance chart here, because I think if we're talking in terms of ETH's potential total value, a good place to start looking is the Bitcoin dominance chart, because I think a lot of that, you know, we can see how much exactly Bitcoin can give up in terms of dominance by looking at this chart. So historically, the lowest we ever got was 36. But I think if you take into consideration the potential utility of Ethereum as opposed to Bitcoin, it makes sense that this market share eventually flips, because Bitcoin is a tremendous store of value. Don't get me wrong, I do think that Bitcoin's here to stay. I believe in it 100%. It's 65% of my net worth. So I completely believe in Bitcoin's potential as a store of value. But in terms of like potential utility, I think ETH just has so much more. Like Rob was saying, I like that comparison of sort of being the base layer of the internet and all these DeFi projects and everything else being built on top of it, sort of being these applications that bolster the internet's utility. And that's exactly how I see it with ETH. I think Bitcoin dominance should drop, into the sub 20 range eventually. We're not there yet because of the, somewhat infancy of the space, but I think that that's where we're headed ultimately. And what that means for the price of ETH, it's hard to say exactly, but I mean, that would put us at a price target of upwards of, 5K, possibly even in the 10K range. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves here. I think that, we can look to the interim price action and kind of determine where we're headed. One thing that CJ and I talk about a lot is the value of this 20-period smooth moving average is sort of a magnet for price. Price doesn't like to stray from this 20-period moving average for a long period of time. You can see that when we ran up to 4,300, we were quickly brought back down by the magnetic forces of this smooth moving average. And, it pulled us right back to it. So to say that this thing is still oversold and at a massive discount relative to where it was back here at 1730, I think is a bit of an exaggeration. I think ETH here, is at a fair price. I think it's done well to correct following this big sell-off. And I think that, we may be in for some consolidation around this smooth moving average. One thing I will look for in the interim is a possible break above this moving average. I think that would set it up very nicely to retest this level of 35K. But if we get rejected by this moving average today, and we are followed up tomorrow with a bearish candle, which is looking likely, given what we're seeing in terms of value, there's a chance we may retest the critical level of approximately 2K. So I do totally believe that ETH has tremendous value going forward and can still steal a lot of that market cap away from Bitcoin. But in the interim, I just think that, it's corrected a bit since this sell-off, and I think it's going to kind of trade sideways with the rest of the market in just the next couple of weeks. But once things start to go and we enter the second leg up of this bull market, I think that's when we'll start to see some more divergence between ETH and Bitcoin. One last point I'll make before I pass it back to you guys is, we saw this period of tremendous price action with ETH during a period when Bitcoin was relatively trading sideways. It was at a very high price point of 61, 64K, but it wasn't making new highs during this period of time. ETH was doing a tremendous job to show strength independent of the market. So that's another thing to look out for. We talked about Bitcoin potentially trading in a range. If that does happen, watch ETH, because when Bitcoin trades in a range, that's when ETH starts to make moves. So, I realize I'm sending a bit of mixed signals here, but I think that, while Bitcoin begins to correct, this could be a good time to start accumulating ETH, because I think that if Bitcoin trades sideways, ETH is set to propel to the upside.
Do you think we're ever going to see above 50% dominance by Bitcoin again?
50%? I don't think so. Just because of the shift we've seen and the amount of, the total value locked in the DeFi space that we've seen just in the start of 2021 so far, I think that's a trend that's going to continue. And Bitcoin's utility, like I said, is limited to that store of value utility. So just because of the flexibility of ETH and the applications being built on the chain, I don't expect to see Bitcoin dominance back above 50 anytime.
What if, real quick question, what if there's like some great news came out as far as like regulation? Like we just covered a story today about how the Federal Reserve is is working with different regulatory parts of the government, the CFTC, the SEC, and they're trying to like fast track a bunch of regulation. Let's say something comes out that's like palatable for a lot of different institutions, and they say, you know what? Also, this ETF we've been kicking around. All right, let's go down that road.
What
do you think about?
That's a great point, Rob. And actually, I'm really glad you mentioned it, because I think that that's what needs to happen. Because looking at the Bitcoin daily chart, I think it tells actually a really interesting story. I talk a lot about this point right here in time, the very start of 2021, this level of roughly 28K. For me, this is where the retail money really started to pour into crypto, Bitcoin specifically. 2020 was a great year, especially the latter half. I think that was mostly due to institutional participation in the space. That's why we saw such sustained growth, relatively like not too much volatility to the downside. We didn't see too many sharp dips in the market. And that's because the institutional hands, they're diamond hands. They're buying this, they're putting it on their balance sheet like MicroStrategy, and they're putting it away for the long term. Here we hit a point where retail speculation began to take place. And that's where the volatility really begins, because traders are using leverage up to 100 to 1. And, that just makes these crazy swings. It allowed us to go up to 64K real quick. But I mean, we're headed back down real quick as well. And I think that this point right here is a good level as a bottom, and as a level that we can maybe anticipate that institutions will start to get back in. So I do believe that we're going to be in for some consolidation around this level, like back before we got all this retail capital in, but that's okay. Bitcoin's more in the public conscious than ever. And I think, a lot has changed in these 3 months. So much has been developed downstream in terms of DeFi and, applications on Ethereum. So we're just at a completely different point in the market. And I think that if we do get some of those regulations that you were talking about, Rob, that could give people, particularly institutions, the conviction to enter back in kind of where they left off back here at the end of 2020.
Let me ask this though. ETH. How about this? Let me frame it like this. I don't believe there's going to be a lot of we'll see that dominance number again, because now there's so many other chains that can be built on. So I want to ask this scenario: will ETH be relevant if it does not? If somebody starts building more prolifically on, say, Cardano, AVAX, any of those chains before they release 2.0? If they're second mover with 2.0 after the market starts filling in, let's say with Cardano builds, is it all done, or does it not matter?
I don't know, because like I'm a big proponent of Cardano and all and Avalanche and those types of places. But you have to think about it like even Cardano made a nice ERC20 converter, makes it very slick and very easy. But the thing is, like, how easy or how hard is it for a project to go, you know what, we're jumping ship? Like Singularity.net, they've already said we're jumping ship, but how many other ones will actually do it? And on top of it, I remember when Lucas was on here, Lucas Bradley, and he was talking about the programming language like Plutus and Haskell or whatever it is. And he says that was their one mistake, that they made it a little bit too difficult. He said if they would have went somewhere else, it would have been much easier. And he said it's going to actually happen, but it's going to take some more time. I think that even if, I don't know if Ethereum can be overtaken per se, but I think it doesn't matter, because if it's all about market share, then that is a loss, because at some point people won't be going all to Ethereum. They'll be like, you know what, I got options, right? That's what we see with Avalanche as far as like DEXs. That's what we're seeing with smart contracts with Cardano. That's what we're going to see with all that rest of them come up. So even if you don't lose everything, you still missed an opportunity. And to get that back, I mean, who knows how much it could snowball. I'm not smart enough to know it.
Okay. CJ, I know the technical issues have been keeping you quiet as of late. Do you have anything to contribute?
Well, I have some words to say.
Say them.
Say them.
Contribution is whatever you want to make out of it. I'm kind of with Rob. My programming is not my expertise. I don't know how easy it would be to make that leap from Ethereum to Cardano with various projects. It seems like the more things like Singularity that can do it, that ultimately supports the theory that people will move from Ethereum to Cardano, or a more efficient and more flexible and feasible chain, if Ethereum doesn't get its kind of developments in time for its roadmap. So at that point, you know, I'll have the flexibility to flip from potentially something like ETH to Cardano, but that's a big change, and we just haven't seen it yet. But I want to keep an open mind moving forward to how the dominance can shift to various utility platforms in the space.
Hey, real quick before Monty goes on, what if it's going to be like this? Like, remember back in the well, some of you, early 80s and 90s, when everything was all PC related, and then for Mac, everyone's like, who owns a Mac? No one uses a Mac. Those are dumb. They're worthless, right? And I mean, some would, but then as time went on, you see like a shift. And like I was PC forever, and then all of a sudden, once I switched to Mac, I'm like, this is so much easier. I've had a Mac for like 7 years. I'll never go off. So like when I see like Ethereum doing all the things they're doing, and I see with like Cardano, especially when they're working with like this underserved, underbanked world mobile token going into Africa, giving telecommunications and doing both of those things for infrastructure, I see maybe there's a dichotomy where you have room for these different ones that can work all these things instead of just one that's going to like just dominate everything.
Yeah, 100%, Rob. Like, the competition in this space is good, right? Like,
yeah, yes, it is.
So yeah, I agree.
I just want to say I only moved to an iPhone from a BlackBerry like 4 years ago. Okay, and I miss my BlackBerry, but I've been called the old man, so you know, I'll deal with it.
I'll deal with it. Oh, and then lastly, I was going to say to Monty, the show that you guys did where you talked about leverage trading, I was going to splice that into my last show, but I ran out of time. But it was a great point. It was Monty and CJ were going back and forth about it. And it's true. I see it all the time about this leverage trading. You know how many emails I get about people who get wrecked on Dan Teaches Crypto? I had an email. What was the big dip when we hit 51%? Like 3 days ago, 4 days ago, whatever it was. I got an email from a guy, and he's like, hey, I just, you know, I was going to take your advice in dollar cost average, but I just went all in, and now I'm down 50%. And it was my savings. So what do I tell my wife? And I was like, I'm not answering this email. But those are the things that I get, I swear. And I'm like, I can't. This is the worst thing of all time. And I think the leverage trading and the people who talk about, you know what, 100x is okay, 50x is okay, I think are just out of their minds. So here's the question I have for everybody. Who is leverage trading for?
Even for funds, you can get better risk management strategies with options. Let's say you're long and you want to cover your downside risk. You can just buy like I would be long probably 30 puts right now if I was long in Bitcoin as well, because like even if you're in the downside, even if you have downside price action, you can keep your hodl stack and say that option goes in the money. You have even more money now to be able to sell that option and buy Bitcoin even at a lower price. But leverage will eliminate your entire position if you reach a particular price. And something that I noticed that's extremely popular, and I won't name any names or anything, but there are very large YouTubers who will advocate, you know, trading on Bybit or various levered exchanges because they have a referral model. They have a referral model with the exchange. The more kind of traders and retail customers they send them, you know, they're getting some money for that. When in reality, leverage is extremely dangerous. And it's just, I don't see it as the most optimal strategy from a risk reward perspective. I just think there are better ways to do it. And it's more of a gamble.
Yeah. I mean, just on the hedge fund side, I've seen a Bitcoin, you know, options cash and carry arbitrage strategy fund just blow up all within 4 months to the tune of $250 million, just because of leverage use.
But they were probably selling options. They weren't just buying puts.
Oh no, yeah,
buying puts. That's much safer.
Yeah, they were hedging until but they were primarily short biased, and so they were buying both sides, and unfortunately they were overweighted on the short positions of the trade when Bitcoin decided to accelerate upwards.
Here's a quick question: if the leverage trading kind of, let's say, hypothetically, government steps in, right, and says we're only going to allow this to do it, leverage trading, unless you are accredited investor or however they do it, and leverage trading just starts to reduce. Would we see less volatility, more so as like people get wiped out, less people get wiped out, or would it still be the same, massive volatility that we saw with 54%, 51%?
I think to what CJ and Monty pointed out the other day in the episode is the fact that it creates velocity in the volatility, right? So you could still have volatility, but it would be more range bound. And what happens with leverage is, because you have synthetic overexposures, it creates an acceleration, and it creates a massive either price. It can go both ways: price increase or price decrease. But you're never going to get rid of leverage in the market. It's an instrument that's used responsibly every day. So,
just like smoking.
We have a comment. Martin says, "Isn't leverage like going to the casino high on crack?"
I love that. Yeah,
that's classic. I'm going to use that. I'm stealing that one. Thank you. Perfect.
Also, I saw a question about data regarding like liquidations. This is one of the best sites I like to use, just Bybit, when it comes to the statistics. But as
not to be confused with that exchange everybody shills.
Yeah, they must pay pretty good referrals.
That's why I'm broke.
I got to write that down. Bybit. Just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, and these are the various exchanges. So you can see Bybit's leading in terms of liquidating its customers.
Wow.
So we have all of these longs and shorts and various liquidations within the last 24 hours. That fall that we had recently was to a tune of about $8 billion worth of liquidations.
What's a couple billion between friends?
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm happy for Bybit, I guess, but sorry for the retail customers. I mean,
that's crazy.
That does accelerate cascading waterfalls. That's why we go from 38 to 31 in less than 10 minutes. Like, you don't see that in other markets.
So you're telling me I got to stop shilling Bybit. Thanks, CJ. Makes sense.
Well, all right. Well, Rob, you got anything coming up for the week, bud?
Yeah. Well, there's two things, and we just did a live stream, and I talked about how I'm going to delve into the Cardano ecosystem. So today I'm going to talk to some of the guys from Charlie, the Oracle over there at the Cardano ecosystem, or the Cardano network. It's going to be Charlie, Liquid, Indigo, which are synthetic assets. And then I'll try to get some other ones like the Card Starter and Cody. So the thing is because I see it like, how Ethereum just blew up in 2017 because everything was built on ICOs. And then all of a sudden we had, Binance, the smart chain, everything kind of went that way. Polkadot, everything was built on that. I think Cardano is going to come into their own. And since I'm a big believer in them, I'm going to cover as many as I can over on Dan Clips. And then people can make their decision over there. So I'm not going to put it on Digital Asset News because that's just news. These are more of the newer stuff, and they can check it out over there. So I got an interview with him in like 20 minutes or so.
Nah, you're a busy man today.
Well, got to make time for the real guys.
3 videos. All right, folks. Listen, thank you for joining us. It's been great. Always love having Rob on. Don't forget to visit his channel. What am I talking about? Everybody knows who you are. Digital Asset News. DanTeachesCrypto.com for all the young people in crypto, newbies and stuff like that. Also, go check out CJ and Monty over at marketrebellion.com/crypto. Only $1 to start. And then, of course, tradethechain.com, trade like Crypto Insider. Yeah, go.
I got one last thing. Did we talk about the Voyager earnings report?
I didn't know if you wanted to touch that. Do you want to touch it? Let's do it. Yep.
People, when I was in a live stream, it was like every other one was like the Voyager loyalty program.
All right,
I know,
listen.
I know Market Rebellion can't talk about
They
it.
can't talk about it,
Yeah.
but we can talk about it. And as CJ likes to say, let's give the people what they want. They've been saying in the chatter, so go for it. You kick it off.
So the thing I talked about before is that, I stopped recommending them because there's all the different problems. Half of my emails were complaints about Voyager. So I stopped. And me and Steve had a little talky about that. And, it's tough because we're friendly, it's tough for me to say these things, but I had to say it. And I couldn't do it anymore. And then now the earnings report came out. Well, two things. First of all, the complaints that I get about Voyager went from like half of my email inbox to like 1 to 2 per week. Second of all, the earnings report came out. And I didn't realize how a massive amount of people influx had come. We were looking at between 50 and 70,000 users to 1.6 million that they have right now. And when we were here talking about it, Alex, it was me, you, and Steve, and he said, we have a plan to get to 10 million, and we're bringing in the team from Uber to help us out with that. I was like, in my mind, I'm like, 10 million, that's kind of crazy. Come on, Steve. And now I see it. So if you go from that to that, I see what they did. I think it's a miracle they're able to handle all these problems. So they had that. I think there was a 16x increase in their revenue from Q2 to, Q3 to last year to now or something like that. So a massive amount. And then this Voyager loyalty program, I'm hoping, because we're at the end of May, maybe June, first week of June. I don't know. But the thing is, when I told Steve, I'm like, hey, I'm going to start recommending Voyager. Because he asked me, what's the problem? I told him the problem. He says, I'm going to start doing it, but you got to make sure everything's kept up. Seems like it's doing okay. I said, but here's the deal. You got to come on the show and you got to explain some things about what's going on. He said, yes. So hopefully before that loyalty program comes about, which I think is going to happen soon, I'm just guessing, then we'll have Steve on. He can answer everybody's questions, and off we go.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting not to see the prices of various things with Voyager react more positively to that earnings announcement, because it was impressive, right? It's everything we wanted to hear.
Yeah.
I just felt there was too much time between the last between, let's say, February and March, and really the VLP is something that I firmly believe is not going to impact the price of the token, nor the stock. So who knows when that's going to happen anyway, but I'm hoping. I haven't wavered. I congratulated Steve the other day on social media. I mean, I'm still the VGX guy. CJ and Monty can't speak, but I could tell you, they want VGX to succeed too. They just blink your eyes twice for yes, guys. No, I'm just. But
what I will say is that I am so excited after meeting some of the people involved in creating the brokerage and options and stock trading platform that Voyager plans to build out over the course of the next year. Obviously, Market Rebellion is partnered with them through that endeavor. So seeing the beginning of that, I am just really excited for all of Voyager's future growth. I'm still holding my VGX. And like I said, I don't plan to sell it anywhere near these levels. But yeah, I mean, that's what I'll say as of now.
Yeah, I'm pro VGX. Steve knows that we're in his corner every day of the week, I hope.
You know what CJ said makes me think about it. Maybe if I can get Steve on with the gentleman that CJ was talking about, and he could explain all the technicalities, I think that would be something that I think people would want to hear. If you want to see something like that, let us know in the comments section, and I will do my damnedest or darndest to get these people on.
I think that's a good idea, definitely. I do want to also give a shout out to buy the dip, sell the tip. First of all, you have the coolest handle in the live chat. But other than that, guys, thank you all very much. Hopefully you enjoyed it today, and we will see you tomorrow. It's hump day, so the end of the week, the end of the month is coming soon. Take it easy, everybody.